Welcome to If They Won't Listen, episode 28. Welcoming our new host, Leon. How you doing this week?
Yo, I am doing really good. I was really excited when you guys gave me the news that hey, we want you to come on and start co-hosting this show. And I said, "Oh, all right." Showed it. The first thing I did was show it to my wife, and she was really happy for me. And yeah, I'm excited to see where this is gonna go. I love a new chapter in my life.
Absolutely. How you doing, Spencer?
Another day, another dollar. Happy as hell.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone have any big things go on this week they want to bring up first? If not, I've got plenty that's going on.
Oh, I got my tax return, and man, I'll tell you that thing was nearly burning a hole in my pocket. I'll tell you, when you get back, when you see that bank account, you open up your phone and go, what? And I go, I want to buy this. I want to buy this. I want to buy this as well. But I had to do that thing where I took a step back and really thought about it and said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And I started allocating money to savings account. And then I donated I donated a portion into a church. And then and then right now I still have a little bit left over that I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with it. Do I want to actually spend it on something fun for myself, or allocate it back into a savings account, or just donate it into something else so I can write it off later in the year? But I was really I want to buy a bunch of games, bro, and some comic books and some books and stuff. And oh man, I want to see if I can buy some things for my mic, some new headphones.
I get that all too much. Ever since I built this 2 months after COVID started, I built this 2020, like in February, or maybe right when COVID started. But yeah, a lot of research, a lot of time. And since I built it, every time I'm bored, I'm on Amazon. I'm like, well, I could just throw something else in it, and like there's so many little ports that are unused that you can't see from the camera. But I'm like, well, I could have 2 more LEDs right here powered by a spot that I'll have to wire to from the back. This is one of my hairless cats, by the way.
Yeah, I saw him in the background. He's like,
yes.
He's going, let go of me, bro. I'm doing a thing.
Yeah, no, they like to free roam, but they're absolutely adorable.
I was actually looking into buying a new computer because I have 2 laptops in the house. I have the one that I'm currently on right now, and then I got one for my wife, which is one of those flex laptops, so you can flip it all the way and then turn it into a tablet, which is just honestly dope. But I was looking into doing getting a new desktop, and my brother has gotten all these towers and computer parts that he's just going to ad hoc together, and I'm going to put a down payment towards a computer on that, and I'm actually going to take that tower and put it in the living room behind my flat screen, and then turn that into sort of a big ass gaming station.
Hell yeah. No, I get all giddy about it. I don't know, right? where are you at, Spencer, with your affinity for tech?
Actually, I'm a big fan of like home entertainment. So it's like the more that I can expand on the television and the accessories around the television, that's what really gets my Jolly Rancher on.
Yeah. What kind of TV do you got? What's the size?
I got a 65 Sony.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I got a 65-inch too, but it's not a Sony. It's whatever brand that I got when I went to Costco one time with my wife and my roommate.
Those are good too.
Yeah, you know.
Does the job, right? You got the 4K in there?
Oh, it is 4K setup. My only problem with it is that it's only a 2-port on HDMI with no ports for AVs. And because of that, I'm gonna look into buying multi-tap adapters, and then look into doing a AV to HDMI so I can port over my PS2 and my GameCube consoles into that.
I had to do that with my N64 last year. I was like, oh, let me just get this thing out. I want to play GoldenEye again. And I realized I had to get an adapter for it. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm so glad they make adapters for like, dinosaur items like this.
For real. No, for real. I'm the same exact way, because I there's not some of the games that I want to play on my PS3 or even on my PS4, they don't have all the classic consoles that they have. And I go, well, they don't have this. I have it. I just have to plug it into my PS2. And I just have yet to pull the trigger on buying all that stuff. Maybe that's what I'll do with my tax return. I'll buy all that stuff.
Something to do with their money.
I haven't even gotten to do mine yet because I was on unemployment due to my job shutting down for COVID, and my state hasn't even like I just got my W-2 for unemployment like last week. So I've been waiting and waiting and waiting on paperwork, and so I have now all the forms I need, but I need my renter's rebate from my damn landlord, and she's dragging her heels through the mud. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll just wait and wait and wait. But
just keep asking her at least every other day. Just go. So
dude,
what?
I hate being that guy.
No, you got it. Dude, I've learned that sometimes you have to be that guy. You have to be the person that repeats the question over and over again, because at the end of the day, it's your ass on the line. If you don't get that renter's rebate, guess what? You don't get a rebate, dog.
Yeah. I've never had one. She did this one other time, and I was like, really? There's 2 inches up there. She's walking on fucking 2 inches.
That's great.
Like she's
That's
like
so nimble.
I'm hanging out because the back of my chair is pretty close to that level. So she's like, oh well, I'll kick it, And this thing
Classic cat.
This thing is a heater, so she loves it because she's cold all the time. And literally, like the GPUs before I got one, when I first saw the temperature my PC told me it was reading out, I was like, it's broken. Oh my god, they run between like 145 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Like it's insanely hot. I had no idea. You could almost cook an egg on the fucking thing.
Damn. Well, you guys want some breakfast, man? While I play some COD? Yeah. Can it run Crisis on full on?
I'm all about that movie life though. We just upgraded to a new TV, and I'm usually buy nice or buy twice. Like I understand that. So but I bought a cheap ass smart TV, and I can't hook it up to my surround sound. Like I can't do anything with it. I haven't even had the thing for like 6 months, and it like force dies on me. I'll be in the like it waits to force die until the most climactic moment of my TV show. I'm like, oh my god, what is about to happen? Like and fucking bink down, and I'm like, oh, here we go. and there's nothing I can do. It's a shitty. It's a Roku, so it's knockoff, Japanese piece of whatever.
It was I got it off a Wish.
Yeah, seriously. My first TV I got was a Vizio, and I spent $650 on a 60-inch with a 5-year warranty, and the thing lasted 6.5 years. We ended up getting rid of it because half the pixels on it died on the right side, but totally worth the money, for 6 years divided by like less than $1,000, and the amount of hours I put into watching that fucking thing. Oh my god, like this Roku, I think I've already lost money on it because I can't deal with my TV dying. Like that's just too much.
No, it's not a good ROI.
No, terrible fucking ROI. That's the thing I have with my new job that's so hard. Like they'll ask me to do a task, and I've had this problem in the past where they'll be like, all right, you need to do this, and then I'll be like, okay, and then I ask another question like, to what extent can I be wrong? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I can spend half an hour on every object and guarantee on my life that it's perfect, or I could look at it for 3 seconds and give you an 80% or better, like a fighter pilot, like in an instant, 18th of a second. When you need to think, 80% or better is usually good. It's better than not thinking, and that's what fighter pilots go by. You times of the importance, 80% sounds good. And I just have a problem with it. I'm like, how do I do this so I never mess up? And I asked a question that no one's ever pontificated. That they didn't know the answer, because they were like, well, no one's ever wondered if it was wrong. That you sell it, and when it's wrong, we do it again. And I was like, well, okay. So like, I had to accept, like, all right, planned obsolescence has become my job. I have to do this knowing that they don't know if it's right. And when it gets fucked up, we'll do it again, because our job is to just do things. And doing it again is the same as doing things in the first place. So I'm like, okay, it's like when you go to a new job and they're all about the science of slow. And you come in like fucking hot off the presses, bing, bing, bing. I want to impress fucking, Lorenzo, and fucking they're like, no, calm down. You can't work this fast. You're gonna make the rest of us look bad.
Oh man, it sounds like a union job right there.
Dude, I've had so many of them. What are you gonna do? Like when I found that out when I was a carpenter, I was a kid, and so they were like, "You want me to? Well, hold on. You don't want me to work as hard as I'm trying to work?" And they're like, "Well, no, we don't want to say it that way. We're not trying to tell you to work less, but you can't work while the electrician's on the scene." I was like, "He's here all fucking day." Well, we were told him not to, but you can't do anything. So I was like, you're gonna pay me to be here. I can't do anything. Wait. Yeah. Okay. I'll fucking pull out Netflix. Fuck it. And so much of me wanted to just go to work because like the day flies by when you're working. You hit a hammer, you fucking whack a nail, and bada bing, bada boom. It's time to go home and eat a Dorito. But no, we need you to wait. And that's the kind of a deal with this job. Like, there's certain things that I'm aware could cause a problem, but I'm not the boss, and I'm not, I'm just there to be a cog in the machine and do what they tell me to do. So I'm gonna do that as good as I can.
Wow, that is some squirrely ass shit right there to hear that. And that really does explain why when I'm driving on the expressway or a highway and then I see road work being done and there's one dude working heavy machinery and there's 4 dudes hanging around just smoking a cigarette on their phones, and that explains so much now.
Have you worked in any trades in your life?
No.
Okay.
Not even a trade. The only thing I've ever really done was I did web support for a company at one point, and then that was it. But nothing like carpentry or construction or road work or anything like that, or even electrician. No.
Yeah. No, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. That was just I got into that vein early, and there's a large demographic for under the table young applicants. You know what I mean? Like that, yeah, I can, instead of making 13 over the table, I can make 16 under the table, and I don't got to worry about Uncle Sam's labor laws. Fuck you. I'll work a 19-hour shift, take a 2-hour nap in the Chevy, and go back at it. And so like, dude, that was king because I was a kid and I didn't care what my fucking report card said. My dad didn't even get them. Like, regular kids got quarterly report card. I got one.
I always hated report card. I always hated report card day. But honestly, I find the whole education system to be very flawed because they're not teaching a lot of, like, growing up. A lot of the stuff that I learned, I don't even apply anymore. There's everything I ever learned in school I've purged. I mean, I still know my basic I list there. I still know my basic math, my arithmetic, and I can multiply, divide like no other in my head, no problem. But if you want to come talk to me about why the stars are the way they are, nope.
Yeah. See, I'm totally against the public school system and the way it functions, but it's like, I'm the type of guy who, like, half the time I want to accept that we can fix everything. And the other half the time, it's kind of like what I said about my job. Like, someone learned along the way, it's not efficient or fiscally responsible to worry about 100% of a job. But if you just teach employees 80 and you tell them to go, in 3 months, they'll either be here or they won't. And if they're here, they'll probably know more than 80. And it's like, so you get this, like, this rate, we're talking about ratios. You get the ratio of what's the benefit to degradation of my time. I could spend 9 months and perfectly train someone. Are they going to make more money than the guy who barely knows his job? I don't know. And it's like, well, okay, we learned, I heard this guy the other day say that 1,000 people with shovels still doesn't beat one dude with an excavator. And I was like, well, I never thought about it that way, but okay, I could see. And so it's like, okay, well, how does economics work? We want more jobs in the economy, so let's give them all smaller shovels. More people can work, right? And it's like, well, if the ratio is efficacy and fiscal responsibility, paying the most for the best job, one excavator still beats double the amount of people with a smaller shovel. It's like, well, fuck. So what do we do? Do we give them all no job? We just call Joe with the excavator? Like, and it's like, well, yeah. And so that you have, and we're going to hit this new topic right off what I'm talking about now. So one thing that Socrates in the Republic and in Plato's work about what Socrates said in the Republic, it's this big circle of people talking, but nonetheless, Socrates in a story as a fictional person wrote by a non-fictional person who's writing about a non-fictional person. It's a big headache, but we can ignore that part of it. He deduces that the perfect method to the city is to have a tier system. So you're gold, silver, bronze, or iron. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so this class, for instance, if the iron and bronze class were the equivalent of poor people, you wouldn't listen to a poor person in the same with the same infallibility than you would listen to a king with. And it's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Like, okay, you created a hierarchy of trust. So the people in the higher society should be the ones who are trusted, and the ones in the bottom who aren't. And I'm not gonna lie, talking about the way they built this system, where like, a bronze guy can't say anything to a silver guy because you're on different levels. But at a time of war, we only accept like in the US, we accept all people. We accept people to fight for our country from all demographics. From alluding to this, analogy, we would accept, bronze, iron, silver, or gold people to join the army and fight for the country. It's the righteous cause. But in the sense of his society, he was like, why the fuck would I have just nobody out there? Like the dude who's an iron or a bronze guy, he doesn't have a good life. He doesn't really he's not benefiting from being out here, and he's probably not going to care. So why would I put him in the decision that's going to protect us? And it's like, so, and I don't know, nonetheless, in his society, only like the best would fight. So like comparing the Marines to the army, like you can't be a Marine if you're not good. Like you fail a test, no bueno. You can join the army pretty much across the board. Like you're bad, just try again. We'll give you a try eventually. And I don't know, I just want to see if any of you guys have any thoughts as to, if we're going to bring up a problem, what's the solution? Like public school systems, there's a problem teaching. I just don't know a solution to that. So it's like, I bring up the problem. I want to know a solution. I don't know how to solve the public school system. I think it's better than not having a school system. Like we're better than a third world country or a second world country, but like, are we working on 80% or better or less is what I'm trying to get at here. You know what I mean? Like, is our school system 80% or better? Like the survival of the fittest, the Elon Musks and the Bill Gateses, they get out and they do what they're going to do because being cognitively gifted and godlike just overpowers time. Like you're going to win if you're supposed to win. And natural selection means that the top get to the top and the others dwindle. But I don't know, in a free society like America, I'm just curious. I brought up tons of points you guys could touch on. I'm just curious. Like, you know what?
Spencer, you want to take that one?
No, I'll let you go, Leon. It seems like you have something to say.
Okay. It's definitely a back and forth kind of deal, because as someone that grew up in a public school system, I can say without a doubt that there's a point where you hit this homeostasis in your education where there's no longer an interest in it. Now, there could be a number of reasons why I myself lost interest. Is it because I didn't really understand a lot of the subjects that were being presented to me? At some point, I became an A and B student because I really, rolled up the sleeves and took the effort to understand what I was being taught. But when I look back on it, I only see that really there's only a certain point where you basically have enough knowledge to go out and do something. I don't apply fractional like math to my job at all. My job is in sales. My job is in putting on webinars. I don't use anything I've ever learned in school. I mean, in terms of English and literature, I have to write a lot of emails and I have to make sure they're grammatically correct. So yeah, but you hit this homeostasis where you already know enough, but you still want to be challenged. So how does the education system have to be comparable to that? I think it's just a matter of what kind of education do we want to really get out of people. I was thinking of something along the lines of you would have a couple instructors in a room and about 2 or 3 instructors, depending on the amount of students that you have. So let's say if there's 30, you would have 1 for every 10. Okay. And then what it would be is that they would read out of almost like a workbook, and they would understand, they would read it, and then they would be asked to, do a practical based off what they just read. Can you do this? So in other words, they read something about mathematics. So addition, they do something, they read about addition, and they do a couple problems in addition problems, subtraction, multiplication, so on. I like to see something where people work at their own pace. So slower students who need help, right? Conventionally, like, hey, you're working at your own pace. We'll have another student come over here and they'll help you because they actually understand it. So it'd be almost like this, is it egalitarian society, where I would see that not only the teachers are helping, but students are helping students, because if a student is a little bit more advanced, they can come and show another student who's having trouble, hey, let me help you through this, right? By applying some sort of study technology that they can understand something a little bit better. So that it's almost egalitarian. That's what I was looking for, where it's almost like they're working in unison with the instructors, and the students are working with students, and then everyone's working at their own pace, so that when they finish math 1, they go on and they get signed up for math 2. Now it takes them 2 weeks. Does it take them 4 weeks? Does it take them 5 months? It depends on the student. And I would rather kind of see that kind of system. So at some point, let's say at the age of 15, you already understand physics. You already understand calculus. You actually have a better understanding of engineering by the time you're 15, 16 years old. And at that point, you can actually go out and start applying for what I would think is like a work internship at a company. I would like to see that, but how do you implement that? Well, I think there needs to be a group of people that have to get together and actually do it themselves, and then show that it works, and then propose that to whatever local government that you have, and then see about getting a government funding to that. It's going to have to take a group. It's going to have to take trial and error and jockeying things around until you get to that point where we can show, look, here's how the education system can work. It doesn't have to be that everyone's studying this subject today, and when we're done with this subject, we're going to this subject. Oh, did you not understand the first part of that subject? Well, tough fucking titties. We're on to geometry. Deal with it. And you're like, wait, no, I still understand multiplication. No, don't matter. That's where I don't like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I want to hear Spencer's take for sure. But no, I understand what you're saying. So like the main contrast to do a quick synopsis is like, as opposed to the volleyball being the lessons that are taught going from one side to the other side and then to a new side, so to speak, in this metaphor, every time, like the subject rapidly changing. If like you said, if you're not caught up, you're not caught up, and you're not going to learn it again. As opposed to that, like you said, the egalitarian version of that would be, base by base. So if the first guy learned the first section fast as hell, he's already on the third. But if the second guy didn't, then he's allotted a longer time. So go ahead and knock yourself out, Spencer. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Nice.
No, it makes sense. I mean, like, I had 2 forms of education. I did the public school and I did the private school. And what I noticed is like, at the end of the day, is the private school just has the benefit of having smaller classrooms with more teachers. And like that's like the part that sucks about public schools, that they don't have enough schools to provide more teachers for the students. The students get kind of round up like cattle sometimes, and then you gotta go at a not doggy dog pace, but you gotta go at a rat race pace to try and keep up, as you were mentioning, Leon. However, I really think if that there was just more schools built and more teachers, then like there wouldn't be such a crisis with public school and like what you're learning and what have you. And like guaranteed, the American system of like the education system is a bit dated. I do think there are other countries that have really managed to reinvent the wheel on education system. And there are some actual private schools that have adapted into the Swedish learning techniques and really teaching kids how to adapt to learning. And it's like really impressive because they don't have to add much pressure to them at such a young age. They actually teach them very loosely about learning about foreign languages and stuff like that, and about like actually pronouncing words and how to learn hello twice. Like you learn hello in English, hello in a foreign language, And you're basically evolving the mind at twice the pace, but not doing it at such a quick speed either. And like I think that if schools tend to look at the structure of what private schools do, then the public schools could really benefit off of that. However, we need the politicians to actually fork over the money to make that system happen. And the sad thing is it's not going to happen because people are too busy about X, Y, or Z. And sadly, the kids get lost in the educational system, which they shouldn't, because every generation before us is the future.
No,
Yeah.
I
No, you're exactly
100%.
right.
It's such a touchy fucking issue because it's, you know what I mean? Like thinking about like the total allotted energy that any country has, it's a fucking rough ratio. You know, we get called the good country. What is that confine based by? Because I know we're like 26th in the world for language, and we're fucking like, we got to be at least 15th for math. Like we used to have some really good numbers, but you know, as Spencer said in the aforementioned, it's dated. And you know, I'm smart due to neglect fosters self-reliance. Like everything I know that I can postulate and pontificate in a smart, fancy, haha way, I learned like by myself with a book that I read, and it wasn't sanctioned by school. Like I already had my GED at that point, so it's difficult for me to give a version of empathy to anyone who's like, you know, oh, school didn't teach you, well, learn by yourself. The internet exists, idiot. You know, and it's like that doesn't work for everyone because it's just not fair. But you know, but it's fucking dicey. Like if a country allocates all their, if they allocate what they think is a good amount of money in their school, and we make the perfect school, we do the egalitarian way, and teachers are paid what a doctor gets paid because they're molding minds, and we build everything around that. My only question is like, if the defense budget crawls too low, do we reach a plateauing point of like America puts 99% of its resources into like the military industrial complex? We don't need any more fucking rockets. I know that. But constantly make more rockets is why we hold the big metaphorical stick globally. And it's like, well, okay, our school system could be perfect, but like make an example of another country where the school system's perfect. America, at least militarily, could squash their like a bug. And it's like, so did they spend, you know, it's just, I don't know. I think of it holistically and whole scale. Like, because to have good schooling means you live in a land that we care more about thought of mind and peace of mind and philosophical understandings of the world than we do about how to defend from our neighboring people. Because like we, as Americans, we're blessed that we don't have to deal with war day to day. But I don't know. It just, we're not leading in schools, but we're leading in freedom. And I guess the question is like, what's more important in the whole scale? You know, do you want to have the right to say whatever and do whatever, but everyone's going to take a hit cognitively? Or would you rather have the best schools in the world, but if they don't want you to spit on the sidewalk, you don't spit on the sidewalk?
I would prefer freedom. Definitely free thought, free speech is a very important thing, because what happens is when you start to confine people and you give them all these restrictions and you say you can't spit. I'll give you an example. You give your daughter a toy. Okay. But what you tell your daughter is like, all right, the toy works like this. The toy does this. You cannot do this with the toy. You can only do this with the toy. And if you catch her doing something else with the toy, and you say, no, you cannot do that with that toy. You cannot do that with that toy at all. It is not meant to be in that kind of that condition. It always has to be in this constant condition. So you keep putting in these limitations and these restrictions and these confines. At some point, your daughter is just going to break the toy or throw it at you, whichever comes first. And what you get with people when you confine them, witness the French Revolution, witness the 1918 revolution of Russia. They were given too many restrictions on people. Too much of it eventually leads to a huge revolt of, I want freedom. I need to speak. I need to think. I need to be able to go down the sidewalk and just get an apple and go back to my house and eat that apple, or be able to feed my family. Right. But you have these too many restrictions can cause that. So it's important to have freedom so that we are able to think a little bit more clearly without someone coming in, rushing in, breaking down the doors and putting a 9mm to your head and say, stop, hammer time.
I'm with you. Spencer, any touching points?
I think, I think we all need to just fucking stop being so analytical about the definition of freedom and just agree on a very basic level what is freedom, and then move on to the bigger nuts into our society. Because us talking about freedom seems just more like a distraction as opposed to us conquering the bigger topics at hand in this country.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's just important that people need to be able to talk and communicate. We can, I like Ricky, he does carpentry. I never learned that. My stepfather is jealous of the fact that I know how to play the guitar, and his father knows how to play guitar, and he never learned how to play the guitar. So it's just like a matter of like, we're free to do what we want. We're free to think. I'm free. I went to school to learn how to design and develop video games. I ain't using that. I ain't using that at all. And I have the debt to prove it.
Yeah.
I think we all have a little debt to prove of our past ambitions.
And when I made this change, I really wanted to get into game development and designing and get into that industry. But then I saw what happened. I knew people that worked in that industry, and I saw how haggard they were. And then I just made this, after failure after failure of interviews, that I wasn't getting jobs, even at an entry level, which always would upset me. Entry level, it means that you have little to no experience, and that I'm able to be molded. And they would go, no, we need someone with experience. What makes no sense at all. But when I had this, after all that, I had this shift change and said, you know what, I'm just gonna do something else with my life. So I met with this person. They liked my personality. They say, look, I think you could do sales. Why don't you come start working with us? And I said, all right, I got nothing to lose. If this doesn't work out, I'm back to driving Uber, which I was fine with in the first place. And then I actually been really, really good at it. I can get people on the phone, get them up to the point where they get a little interested in our services. And then I tag out and let someone close the deal. That's basically what I do. And I'm a much happier person now for it. But that freedom right there, instead of just going, oh man, we should be free to do this and free to do that, and I should have the freedom of religion and speak and be non-binary. It's like, what are you doing? It's like people that argue about differences. You know what I mean? Why are we arguing about differences? We should be communicating our differences to a point of understanding so that we grow through life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. You know, I don't know. I've lived in so many different demographics. It's just, if you were to ask me the same question 5 times, I could give you 5 answers and not cynically laugh at you. You know, like it's so fucking weird, because like the context matters. How fast are you moving right now? Because you can't tell me that question without context. If you answer, no matter what you answer, I can tell you you're wrong. How fast are you moving? We can go with the speed of the Earth in relativity to the galaxy. You know, like the Earth is spinning and you're on the Earth, so you're spinning. But if we separate you spinning from the Earth spinning, you're moving at some X thousands miles an hour right now. But when you're driving down the highway in your Civic, you know what I mean? You and your seat are both doing 0. Your car is doing 70. But now if we compare your car to the street, your car is doing 70, your seat's doing 0 compared to you. I don't know. The relativity lesson I got in fucking like 9th grade has never left me. Like every time someone asks me a question, I'm like, I can think of 3 instances where you're wrong. And you're talking about facts.
Neil deGrasse, your teacher?
Dude, I was blessed. I basically, in essence, yeah, like not
That's
literally.
awesome.
Yeah, dude, I had a teacher. He was a retired meteorologist who spent time up on a mountain that was in terrible inclement conditions all the time, year round, because he wanted to study weather. He was like, dude, I lived in a shack. I had 3 jackets on, just studying the antenna and studying weather. And, you know, I got done with that and I wanted to teach people. So I became a science teacher. And, you know, like he wasn't trying to pay the bills and he wasn't, you know, trying to get by being a teacher and unable to pay his bills, which caused cynicism, you know, but he just wanted to teach you shit. Like, you know what I mean? He was like, if no one pulls their phone out and no one records anything, I'll do some shit I'm not allowed to do. And then you pull your phone out and you hit the principal's office and the entire class says they didn't do that experiment. You know what I mean? Like he made flaming bubbles once. He had a fucking shoulder glove on and he reached into a 5-gallon bucket and pulled out and then grabbed a second hand and made a bubble and then reached down onto a Bunsen burner and grabbed flame and fucking clapped. And there was like a 36-inch in circumference flaming bubble in the air. And I was like, what? And like he locked the door first, covered the window, glanced across all the students to check for phones. And we all had phones like under the peak, halfway under a desk in between two backpacks, but still is such a great science teacher. You know, if every teacher taught because they wanted to, like if they loved the information they were teaching and they taught it because they love it, the recipients benefit from that. But if you're, you know, let me look down at the book, it's 74. And then you look back up at your 16 kids and who's got 74? And you know, that's so fucking boring. I hated school and I was a drug addict. So I'm the outlier, not the, you know, I'm the exception to the rule. I'm not the rule. But the people who I knew who weren't drug addicts still hated school. Like, you know, it seems like a synonymous opinion. You know, they wanted to be getting high and I was failing, but they weren't. And now they're in college and I'm not, but I can pay my bills and so can they. But philosophically, I know more than most of them.
And now they're getting high because it's legal.
Right? It's really insane, you know. And I'm sometimes a little bit envious, but really respect people who drop out of school at whatever age, get their GED, go right into a trade, learn it, and they're making more money than I have in a long time. And I truly respect that. And it shows that someone with 14, 15 years of education and struggling to make ends meet compared to the guy that only got 7 years of education and he ain't struggling at all. Matter of fact, he's putting an addition to his house at the end of this month. It speaks volumes. Not to say that anyone that goes to a college is not struggling. It's just that it's a very individualistic thing. And then I will say, when I graduated college and I got into the field and I started applying for jobs, I realized quickly that the IT market was saturated. You go and apply.
Again?
What
was it again?
The IT market.
What was it?
Information technology, programming, software.
No. What was it? What was it again? It was too.
The job market would be saturated.
Gotcha.
But in terms of for every one opening, you had 75 people that probably applied for that job. Now I'm being arbitrary. What I'm getting at is that it was a lot of people. So I had to prove that I was better than that many people. And that's not always easy to do. You know, comparatively, I'm sure someone's a much more talented programmer than I was. I don't doubt that at all. I definitely had a functional mind on how to program. If you tell me how to put up an array and rearrange it, I can show you how to do that. No problem. But if you tell me to do something a little bit different, I may have to Google it. But that's not even a big deal because I know engineers that are out there who Google all the time when they ask, can you do this? And they go, yeah, I could do that. And they Google it. And then they just apply whatever they learn. Right. They read it, learn it, and then immediately apply it as what they assimilate. And when I realized how saturated the market was, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to pull myself out of this race. I'm done.
I can get that. That's a huge thing, you know. And I don't want, like when I was a kid, before I knew anything, before I could tell you what I'm about to tell you, I thought I don't need to go to college. Like if I work hard, I could be telling the kid who went to college, you're an idiot, you wasted time. And now as like a 26-year-old, I still covet that opinion, but I preface it with a lot of context. Like the person who's outdoing the college kid, did he spend twice the amount of time working, and he spent twice the amount of time trying, and he failed twice the amount of times. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like I've worked at so many positions and I've failed so many times that I know I can do it because what's going to happen? I'm going to fail. Oh no, I'll do it again. You know? And it's like, that's been my philosophy. You know what I mean? Once a philosopher, you know, everything can be done. Nothing should be taboo. If something's taboo, you probably should have done it 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? It's like that philosophy makes me want to go skydiving. I'm terrified to go skydiving. But the idea that me being terrified would make it epiphanous by nature, makes me interested. Like, okay, I don't want it. I'm scared of it. I'm going to conquer that and do it. Like, um,
It's a good way to live.
yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I look at myself. I try not to look at myself as the standard, and I think that's scary with me raising a kid. Like I know what I could teach her, I could teach her the 80% or better. I can teach her what school will teach her. I can teach her what everyone else is gonna teach her, and she'll get by fine. But it's like the real question to me is like, I've read studies that say if you spend 16 years trying to coach a kid into doing something, they're either going to do it after 16 years well or diametrically oppose your teaching and, do the exact opposite better than what you tried to teach them to do. And in the concept of that, I question what is the correct parent choice? Like, do I accept that anything I try to teach her will go out the window because cognitively, genetically, she will be who she's going to be regardless of my teachings? Or do I think the opposite? Without my hard work, she in fact would be worse. Both of those I think are as interesting and as worrying as like if we're alone or not in the universe. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that. Like that's both of those are disconcerting. Both of them. They both suck. We're alone. I'm scared. We're not alone. I'm scared. Doesn't matter. Like it's a pretty good line. I can teach her shit and be right, or I can teach her shit and it fucks up, and you can't undo that wheel. Or like I can just not teach her anything and see what happens. And if I'm right, well, say la vie, natural selection. And if I'm wrong, well, fuck it. It's like I don't know. I really don't want to be the regret guy.
I think this is what Spencer was talking about. If we spend our time being so analytical as opposed to just doing, and you can kind of just miss the point. Am I incorrect on that, Spencer? I think that's something you were getting at, was that if we just sit there being analytical, we're just wasting time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're I think everyone could agree on the lean part. It's everyone disputes the fat, and it's like the fat's the part that's distracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I talked, my wife and I have talked about this before, and we are not interested in public education. We don't know if we can afford private education. So we are honestly looking into homeschooling, and we decided she's more of the breadwinner. She makes more money than I do. I'm fine with that. And we decided that I would be the one to homeschool our kids when the time comes. And I'm
How would
completely
you make up for the social experience that goes with it, or the social development that goes along with it?
right. And I, people have talked to me about that. They go, because that was one thing that we had in school. We had that social life, but when you really thought about it, that social life only existed in PE class or lunch at the beginning of school and sometimes at the end of school. So when you really think about it, and once again, I'm being arbitrary on this, maybe 2.5 hours of social life.
But those are growing pains at a young age. I mean, you can't
Right.
wall up a whole 6 hours on them. So like if it's 2.5 hours, like I don't see that as like such a big detriment or such a small detriment. I see that as like an educational time where they're going to be socially active and find people amongst their peers that they could relate to and everything. I'm not trying to knock homeschooling. I think if
Right.
anyone wants to do that, hey, that's terrific. Go for it. That's why we all agree on the basic definition of freedom. But like I'm always very curious to know, it's like, how do you supplement the other stuff that school provides that you would not get at home?
And we thought about that, and the one thing is that we do know we are part of a community where there's people that do have kids, and they're not going to be stuck in the house for 6 hours. We would I would postulate that they would be 4 hours of study and practical, and they still have a whole day left to go socialize. And I would make sure that I know other parents, that I can plan that, where I can meet with other parents. I'm even up to the extent that, let's say I wanted to teach my kid martial arts, but I know a few families or a family that has kids that want to learn martial arts. So then I would bring them together and I would teach them, and so they can socialize around in that environment, right? In that time and place where they can socialize and still learn something at the same time. So it's just something I thought about, I don't really know what I'm going to do when I get to that point, but I feel that if I put it out there, I can find that kid a social life and they can grow up learning how to be with someone that's maybe a little bit older than them or someone that's a little bit younger than them. And then they can grow as a person.
And what about like what happens if they want to join like team sports, like let's say basketball or football? Like, yeah, you could get that for a period of time in a recreational town setting, but it does go up to a certain age where like you get to your later teens, and it's kind of like you have to be a part of like the school to participate in those sports. So like, what? How would you like make up that gap?
Right. So that you have your pee-wee, yeah, you have your pee-wee leagues, and then that's a great way to get them to socialize. But you're right. Once you get to, I think about 15, 16 years old, I think
Yeah.
it kind of stops at that point. It kind of stops at that point. Well, at that point, if they wanted to go into a public school system, I would not be against it. If they
Right.
wanted to get more into sports and they really wanted to play, and the only place they can play at that point is in high school, then I wouldn't be against it.
Heard that. Heard that. I think that's really cool. I think it's like how you're willing to take a opportunity and interesting endeavor into teaching a child and molding a mind. I think that's really far out. But I like how you leave it open ended, where it's just like, ah, shit, you want to go play basketball, soccer, football, whatever it may be. Like, all right, here you go. There's high school. Have fun, enjoy. Watch out for the chili on Fridays.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And if you need money, sell rock. I heard that's what they do around here.
Sell
So-
rock. They got a pet rock. It's the 60s again.
No. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's just say that's what I was alluding to.
So Spencer, I'm literally not trying to take a devil's advocate approach here, but my opinion is in that vein. So I'm just curious, does my structured life of doing what you have to do because there's just no other way to live, is it hell and Nazism? Because so I'm gonna run this through a short version. But so I agree with everything you just said, basically, Leon. Like as far as homeschooling goes, I even praise Elon. Like fucking hire some child psychologists, hire a bunch of people who understand the neurology of a child, who understand how an emotion can get in the way of a legitimate thought, and get the best and brightest minds who are trained and have experience, and get them together to build a curriculum. And then once they convene, then you get some trustworthy people who have a perfect track record at managing places to run it. And it's like, I respect that. You could do it with a bunch of parents, but my one question is like, so, and maybe I sound far out here, but as a dude who had a laptop at 11, do you really think that, and I'm not talking chemically, because I'm aware you can both put me down immediately chemically. Outside of chemically, do you think there's any difference between the interaction through a device like this and the real thing? Because, and the only thing I mean by that, in the fullest extent, besides the obvious definition of what I said, is like, obviously us talking in person, there's factors that I don't have. There's the exterior noise that noise suppression's putting down. There's your smell, and like all of my senses are to play. So I'm aware I'm talking out my ass in that sense. But like, if you need to see a picture of an elephant, do you gain that much more seeing it in person? You know what I mean? Like if you need to know for the rest of your life the picture of a predatory threat, is that something that you gain more than like 3 or 4% of knowledge upon by seeing it? There's actually
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you see a picture of an elephant and then you see the real thing. I'm going to be more likely to remember the real thing of an elephant.
Word.
Like it's just like because like because you're so young, you're so impressionable, your mind is mush and it's building up to some type of strong muscle. And like, why not throw that little chunk of like visualization in there for a kid to be like, oh, I know what an elephant looks like at the age of 2.5 or something. Because why? They experienced it, they saw it. I mean, that's the coolest part about zoos. Like, I think more people should take their kids to a zoo, or more people should go to zoos just in general. I mean, why not?
Museums,
Yeah, museums too. I mean, everything.
nature walks, anything.
Yeah,
That's something
but
I would
on the
love to do.
topic, yeah. But I mean, along the topics of seeing a picture and seeing the thing in real life. I mean, in that aspect, I fully believe that the real life experience is the best experience to have for cultivated learning.
Right. So there's two ways to learn. There's, if you really had to boil it down, there's two ways people gain knowledge. There's firsthand knowledge, which is you read it in a book, or you go and you see a tree, or you see a picture of an elephant. Like Ricky said, you see a picture of an elephant, you see a picture of a tiger, and you go, this is a tiger. This is a freaking threat. This is a duck. These things are kind of assholes.
Kind of. They're malicious.
They're malicious assholes. This duck right here, especially this one on the left. Oh my God. He's a real asshole, Morty. And
God, man, if you got to get to work in the morning and you get a school of ducks just crossing the street, that's it. You're done. Just call your boss, tell him you're going to be a half hour late.
I know, right? Yeah, for real. And then the other way that you learn is what they call secondhand knowledge. So if you guys didn't know anything about engineering, and then I started talking to, well, this is how engineering works. This is the engineering of how a car works, and the combustions and the tubes, and it works like this. And or an elephant is this massive creature with 4 legs, with a tail and a trunk. That would be secondhand knowledge. I'm teaching you without giving you any math. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, but I have my own interpretation of what an elephant is. And then therefore you have your own interpretation of what an elephant is. And I'm a kid, so my interpretation of an elephant is really wacky compared to yours. But if we had the real thing, our imaginations would be on the same page.
Right. Exactly. If we were all reading the Harry Potter books, and we were reading the first book at the same exact time, we were page by page, word by word, but we have all three of us are going to envision Harry Potter a little bit. We got the basics. We know that he has glasses. He has the scar. We got that much. And then Hermione Granger, we know her hair is like this. And we know that Ron Weasley is redheaded. We have that. But structurally, whatever, we might have different ways of looking at them. One might be taller than the other. One might be skinny. One might be just a little chubby.
I'm going to be honest. I probably cheated off of what the other 800 people did and just watched the movies.
There were movies?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Allegedly. It's really underground.
not many people know.
It's right next to the Andy Warhol section.
No, but and so all I mean is, like, if we were to raise 2 kids here, and I'm hitting you with the extreme what if, but like literally, if we were to raise 2 kids separately, and one kid had social experience and let's pretend they had the same genetics and that there's no variables we can't account for, double blind, placebo controlled, my question is just like, my personal opinion is it's the 80% thing. Like the kid who's if all the same knowledge is available, but one kid can go to a mountain and see it off the top of it, and one kid has 37,000 pictures from Google. I'm not gonna lie, the 3D AR mapping of real places on Google it's fucking surreal. Like you can see the sweat on animals, for Christ's sake, and the timestamp from the satellite. So I don't know. My question is, like, how much more do you learn? Like, I know that you gain stuff you didn't have before. That's not my argument. It's just, if we had a kid raised, homeschooled, with no friends, but with endless internet and structured, like in the same way that the regular kid would get social by going to school, you would get social by going online. And you obviously wouldn't want to be talking to trolls. You'd want to be talking to valued people, and I have to wonder, if you knew you weren't alone, if you had the disposal to talk to anyone, and instead of traversing the world to get exercise, you had a crunches and push-up diet, like you were in karate 24/7. The 2 18-year-olds, what's the outcome? That, like, I don't know. I've read a lot of
based on their drive, though. Like at the end of the day, it is based on one individual's drive.
How interested are they?
Yeah, how interested are they? And that's like the end of it. I mean, you two could have your own different way of learning, and they will be affected by that to a degree. But at the end of the day, it's how much are they willing to absorb? How much is their attention really gravitated towards this? And then you'll have your product in the end. I think to think it just solely based on the parenting skills alone, you're really neglecting the other half of this party here.
No, and see, that's what I mean, though. So do you think the approach that, like, my parents took, and that everyone I know whose parents took, which is do what we think, and then, like, I don't know how to raise my kid, but I have a kid. So we have a problem. I can't freeze time, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And my mother-in-law, she was like, yeah, would put you in the room and we'd go hang out. You know, and it was like that's what they did. And guess what? My she's a lovely lady, you know, so it didn't fuck up. It could have. Was there a probability for it to? Was there a propensity for danger higher than it would be otherwise? I can allude so, but I'm still left with the mind-uttering fact she's alive. My mother-in-law had more free time, so it's like who was the benefactor? Like, you know, and now that I have a kid, I see that because it's like, okay, I can intently sit down and play one-on-one, eye to eye. There's, you know, oxytocin transferring back and forth. Like there's chemicals my daughter can't get without me. That is a fact chemically. But it's like, you know, does she benefit a whole lot whether she plays with blocks alone or whether I coach her from the couch? You know, like she's playing with blocks. We're both in the same room. And I don't know, that was my shitty analogy of comparing the kid who's homeschooled and the kid who's not. But it's like I just don't know. I don't, you know, humans are so goddamn complicated. You know, there's so many fucking variables.
It really is. And you know, life is an individual experience that you share with other individuals. But at the end of the day, when it comes to someone that's being homeschooled versus someone that's in a public school with thousands, I mean, my graduating class was 1,100 students. Let me just throw that out there right now. I went to a school with over 4,000 other kids, but I really only talked to about 10. Yeah. Right. I saw all the kids. I knew other kids. I knew other people, my other peers by name, and I know what they look like because I had them in class. But I had a circle of maybe 10, 12 other students that I was friends with. Right. At the end of the day, it's a necessity level. What's the person's necessity level? Meaning how necessary is it for them to be interested in the thing that they're learning, the person that they're talking to the shit that they're taking, to the video game that they're playing, to going outside and looking at a mountain or touching an elephant or riding or going and learning how to row a boat. It's the necessity level. How interested is that person, right? Spencer was bringing that up. Like, what is their interest level? You know, are someone that's going to read on the internet about dolphins and mountains via the internet versus a person that's going to go out and learn about mountains by going out on a hiking trip with his father, and then a guide of someone who goes and explains this is foliage and this is a tree and this is right there, that's a squirrel and it's doing its thing, right? How interested is that kid? Is that kid walking not interested, or is he super interested? Versus the other kid that's on the internet reading about squirrels, reading about nature. Is he really one has to assume that he's interested because he went and DuckDuckGo it, because I refuse to have any kid of mine Googling or using Bing.
I'm with you there on that last part, Jesus. But no, I think I don't know. I think we had a well-rounded in the sense of opinions, maybe not in the sense of concessions. We just banged the 2-minute warning on the first show. But so yeah, I know, and I feel that way too. But Spencer put it in the best way. In the past, I used to, if time made it convenient to end at 45 minutes, which I think only maybe happened once, we did it. And in other shows, you know, if we wanted to talk for an extra half hour, we did. And you know, Spencer was like, well, you know, when it's worth being here longer, and when we can equate it to be worth longer, we'll be here longer. But for now, doing an hour locked makes sense. And like for the first time, it was like, yeah, you know, I'm trying to do time management. An hour works. You know, we can work with an hour. So, but yes, you know, in the past we didn't do 2-minute warnings. There was never a 2-minute warning.
Right.
So.
We should do closing thoughts now.
Yeah. Yes. So
that's awesome. Why not?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, you know, wrap up thoughts, ideas. How was the first episode with us knuckleheads?
No, yeah, I like it a lot. I think you guys bring in very interesting viewpoints. We all come from different backgrounds, and you're younger. Ricky, you're younger than me. I'm 34, going on 35 this year. I'm married. I don't have a kid. I'm planning on having a kid with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been through my life going from high school to college to getting a job, falling out, right? So my experience in life is obviously different from your guys. So that's what I like. I like the fact that we're coming from different backgrounds, and that makes for good podcasting. I'll tell you, it's good old podcasting, baby.
Absolutely. No, I'm happy to have you for sure.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that one kick ass. And so, do you have anything you want to plug before the end of the show? I mean, I know you're a regular visitor now, but do you have anything you want to plug before the end of the show for anyone listening or watching?
No, not at the moment.
No,
just
it's
maybe-
cool. That's
Yeah.
that's a cumulative. We can rack that up throughout time.
Yeah.
Check out any links we have beneath the show. Thank you everyone for listening, and thanks for listening. ITWL 28.